Get your black ass off my equipment right now! Marcus Wellington's voice exploded across the pristine dojo as he grabbed 16-year-old Zara Johnson by the shoulder and yanked her away from the punching bag. I have every right to be here, Zara said quietly, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Rights? Marcus laughed, his wealthy white friends circling like vultures with their phones out. You're here on charity, little monkey. Your welfare mama cleans our toilets. He shoved her hard, sending her stumbling backward. Time someone taught you people your place. Zara caught herself against the wall, her young face burning with humiliation as racist laughter filled the air. Every phone camera captured her shame for social media entertainment. But what Marcus didn't know was that this quiet black girl had been hiding something for 6 years, something that would turn his privileged world into a living nightmare in less than 60 seconds. The Riverside Athletic Club stood like a fortress of privilege overlooking the city's financial district. $500 per month bought access to marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and the unspoken understanding that this was white America's sanctuary. The member roster read like a who's who of generational wealth: CEOs, federal judges, politicians' children, and old money families who'd built their fortunes on the backs of people they'd never acknowledge as equals. Zara Johnson didn't belong here, and everyone made sure she knew it. At 16, she moved through these pristine halls like a ghost, invisible except when someone needed to remind her of her place. Her scholarship to the youth program had expired on her birthday, but she still came after school, using her mother's access key to practice in empty corners where the elite wouldn't be bothered by her presence. The contrast was stark and deliberate. While other teenagers arrived in luxury SUVs wearing $100 athleisure, Zara walked 3 miles in hand-me-down clothes that had seen better decades. Her lunch came from home in a brown paper bag, while her classmates ordered gourmet meals delivered by personal assistants. Every detail of her existence screamed poverty in a place designed to worship wealth. But Zara carried herself with quiet dignity that no amount of money could buy. Honor roll student at Lincoln High, working part-time at Jimmy's Diner to help her mother pay rent, she'd learned early that excellence was her only weapon against a world determined to diminish her. Her dark eyes held intelligence that intimidated teachers, and wisdom that unsettled adults who preferred their black teenagers loud and easy to dismiss. What none of them suspected was the secret that lived in her muscles and mind. 6 years ago, an elderly black janitor named Yamamoto had seen something in the 10-year-old girl whose mother cleaned offices after midnight. He'd taken her under his wing, teaching her Kyokushin karate in abandoned warehouses and community centers where white oversight couldn't interfere. Discipline before strength, respect before victory, Sensei Yamamoto would whisper during their pre-dawn sessions. You are training not just your body but your spirit. One day, that spirit will be tested. Zara had earned her black belt through underground tournaments in neighborhoods where survival meant more than trophies. Her body bore the hidden scars of 6 years conditioning: calloused knuckles, reinforced shins, core strength that could generate devastating power despite her small frame. But she kept this deadly skill buried beneath layers of code switching and careful submission, knowing that any display of strength would confirm white fears about aggressive black women. Elena Johnson had sacrificed everything for her daughter's future. At 42, she moved through the gym's after-hours silence with practiced invisibility, emptying trash cans and scrubbing equipment used by people who wouldn't make eye contact. 15 years of night shifts had aged her beyond her years, but her pride in Zara burned bright enough to fuel another lifetime of indignity. Marcus Wellington represented everything the Johnson women fought against. Third-generation hedge fund royalty, he'd inherited his position along with his prejudices. Recent divorce and a partnership rejection had left him angry and looking for targets weaker than himself. At 35, he still lived off family money while playing at being self-made, using his brown belt in karate like a badge of masculine superiority over people he considered genetically inferior. The gym was Marcus's kingdom, and he ruled it with casual cruelty disguised as mentorship. He'd perfected the art of racist harassment that stopped just short of actionable offense, using coded language and strategic witnesses to maintain plausible deniability. His circle of wealthy white friends provided an echo chamber that reinforced his belief in natural hierarchy. David Carter understood the dynamics better than most. The 28-year-old civil rights lawyer had earned his membership through merit, not inheritance, and watched the subtle violence of exclusion play out daily. As one of the few minorities who'd achieved acceptance, he felt the weight of representing his entire race while navigating spaces designed to remind him he was a guest, not an owner. What none of them realized was that forces beyond their control were converging. Yamamoto's careful training, Elena's sacrificial love, and Zara's suppressed rage were building toward an explosion that would shatter the comfortable illusion of white supremacy forever. The storm was coming, and it wore the face of a 16-year-old black girl who'd learned to fight in the shadows. The evening rush brought wealthy teenagers flooding into the gym, their designer gear and entitled laughter filling the space. Zara had claimed a corner near the windows, moving through her kata with quiet precision while trying to ignore the stares. Marcus arrived stressed from another disappointing day, his jaw tight with rage that demanded a target. He spotted Zara immediately, the perfect outlet for his frustrations. "Hey everyone, check this out!" His voice cut through the chatter as he pulled out his phone. "The help's daughter thinks she belongs with her betters." He circled her slowly, deliberately mispronouncing her name. "Zara, right? That's some ghetto name." His friends snickered, phones emerging as they sensed entertainment. Zara stopped mid-movement, heart hammering. "I'm just using my scholarship time, sir." "Sir?" Marcus laughed mockingly. "At least your mama taught you manners. But this area is for members who actually pay, not charity cases." He stepped closer, invading her space with entitled confidence. "I bet Daddy's not in the picture, right? Single black mom living off welfare using our tax dollars for this hobby?" The circle of teenagers pressed closer, phones capturing every moment. Some looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. Marcus swept his foot through her water bottle, sending it skittering across the floor and soaking her clothes. "Oops, guess you people aren't used to nice things anyway." Elena appeared with her cleaning cart, witnessing her daughter's public degradation. The visual was devastating. Black mother in uniform, black daughter kneeling to collect scattered belongings, while white people laughed above them. "Zara, come on. We don't want trouble." Marcus called out as they left. "That's right. Keep your daughter in line. We can't have her getting aggressive like her people do." The gym erupted in laughter. Phones captured every second for social media entertainment. The humiliation was complete, public, and viral within minutes. That night, Zara stared at her reflection, tears streaming down her young face. Hidden beneath her bed lay a black belt representing 6 years of secret training. She touched a photo of her late grandfather in military uniform, a Tuskegee airman who'd fought for a country that didn't respect him. Tomorrow, she whispered, would be different. They had no idea what they'd awakened. Marcus's video exploded overnight, racking up 100,000 views and thousands of racist comments that fed his ego like digital cocaine. "Put that monkey in her place. Hood rats don't belong with civilized people. Finally, someone teaching these welfare queens respect." Each notification validated his worldview and fueled his hunger for more content. He'd found his niche, humiliating the black scholarship girl for white entertainment. The algorithm rewarded his cruelty with engagement, and engagement meant influence. Marcus Wellington was becoming a social media star, one racist video at a time. Week 1, the name game. Marcus launched his systematic campaign with surgical precision. He started calling Zara everything except her real name: Shaniqua, Keisha, LaQuisha, each mispronunciation drawing snickers from his growing audience of wealthy white followers. "Oh, sorry, what's your name again? It's so hard to keep track of all these ethnic names," he'd say loudly whenever she entered the gym, his phone always recording. "Maybe you should get a normal American name like Jennifer or Susan. Something civilized people can pronounce." He targeted her natural hair with particular venom. "Did you stick your finger in an electrical socket?" he'd ask when she wore it in its natural texture. "Or is that what happens when you can't afford real shampoo?" His friends would howl with laughter while Zara's face burned with shame. The food policing came next. Marcus would hover near her during breaks, commenting on her simple packed lunches. "I see your mama's food stamps bought you quite a feast there. What is that, a government cheese sandwich?" He'd film her eating, adding captions about how these people eat and no table manners. Each day brought new territorial violations. When Zara approached equipment, Marcus would suddenly appear. "This equipment is for paying members, not project kids. Maybe try the playground down the street, more your speed." Week 2, Digital Warfare. The Cleaning Crew comedy series launched across Marcus's social platforms, each episode designed to dehumanize Zara for viral entertainment. He filmed her studying between workouts, adding voiceovers. "Look at this one pretending to read." Affirmative action won't help if you can't actually comprehend the words. His hashtags gained traction among white supremacist networks. #Know Your Place, #White Gyms. For white kids, #Diversity Fail. Each post generated more followers, more engagement, more validation for his racist worldview. The comments section became a cesspool of racial hatred that Marcus carefully curated and amplified. "Someone needs to teach that little monkey some respect. Why do we let these animals into civilized spaces? This is what's wrong with America, giving handouts to inferior races." The harassment followed Zara to school as Lincoln High students discovered the videos. White classmates started avoiding her in hallways. Teachers gave her suspicious looks, as if her mere presence might trigger violence. College scouts stopped returning calls about her academic achievements. Elena watched her daughter withdraw further each day, the light dimming in eyes that had once blazed with hope and ambition. Week 3, Physical Escalation. Marcus grew bolder, moving from verbal assault to physical intimidation disguised as accidents. He'd bump into Zara accidentally, then apologize with mock concern. "Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. You people really do blend into the shadows, don't you?" He began standing too close when she practiced, invading her personal space with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences. "You smell like... What do they cook in the projects? Collard greens and failure?" The hair touching started without warning or permission. Marcus would reach out and grab strands of her natural hair, examining it like a specimen. "Is this real or did you buy it from some Chinese lady? I always wondered how you people get your hair to do that." When Elena arrived for her cleaning shift, Marcus cornered her near the supply closet. "Your daughter's getting uppity lately. Better teach her some respect before I have to call someone about her attitude problem. We can't have these young ones thinking they're equal to their betters." Elena's hands shook as she gripped her mop handle. 15 years of this job, 15 years of swallowing pride to feed her daughter's dreams, and now this man was threatening everything they'd worked for. Week 4, The Setup. Marcus announced Cultural Education Friday with the theatrical flair of a carnival barker. He gathered his core group of wealthy white supporters, phones ready for what he promised would be his most entertaining content yet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he proclaimed to his growing live stream audience, "today we settle an important question about natural ability versus artificial advancement. Our little diversity experiment thinks she can compete with real athletes." The gym filled with expectant faces. Wealthy teenagers, their parents, established members who'd never questioned the racial hierarchy that kept their sanctuary pure. Even some adults brought children to witness what Marcus promised would be an educational demonstration. "Since our scholarship princess thinks she can train with real Americans, let's see what affirmative action karate actually looks like," Marcus announced to thunderous applause from his supporters. "Time to show everyone why some people belong in the gym and others belong cleaning it." The crowd pressed closer, phones held high like torches at a rally. The energy was electric with anticipation, cruel joy, and the kind of mob mentality that had fueled lynchings in previous generations. Marcus grabbed the gym's microphone, his voice carrying across the space with the authority of inherited privilege. "Today we demonstrate the difference between natural superiority and participation in trophy culture. This little girl represents everything wrong with forced diversity." He looked directly into his phone camera, addressing his online audience of growing white supremacist followers. "To everyone watching, this is what happens when we let these people think they're equal. Watch me put this ghetto princess back where she belongs." Zara stood in the corner, 16 years old and utterly alone, surrounded by a sea of white faces hungry for her destruction. Her hands trembled not with fear, but with 6 years of suppressed rage finally demanding release. What none of them realized was that their entertainment was about to become their education. In the changing room's suffocating silence, Zara's hands shook as she dialed the only number that mattered. Outside, the crowd's bloodthirsty energy seeped through the walls like poison. "Sensei, I can't take it anymore. They think we're animals." Yamamoto's voice carried the weight of 70 years fighting the same battles. "And what do you think, Zara-chan?" "I think they're about to learn that this animal has been training for 6 years to protect herself from exactly this moment." Her voice steadied with each word, fear transforming into focused determination. "Remember, you are not fighting for revenge. You are fighting for every black child who has been told they don't belong. Show them what discipline and respect really look like." Zara touched her grandfather's dog tags around her neck, a Tuskegee airman who'd fought for a country that never respected him. His blood ran through her veins, warrior blood that had survived slavery, Jim Crow, and generations of white supremacist violence. Through the window, Elena caught her daughter's eye and nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "Show them what Johnson blood is made of, baby girl." David Carter approached quietly, his voice barely a whisper. "Half the civil rights community is watching this stream. You're not alone there." The gym's energy shifted as word spread beyond its walls. Black Twitter was mobilizing. Social justice warriors were sharing the stream. The narrative was changing from white entertainment to something much more dangerous. As Zara emerged, her movement transformed completely, fluid, dangerous, purposeful. She no longer looked like the submissive black girl they'd been tormenting. She looked like 6 years of controlled fury about teaching the world a lesson. The bell's sharp ring cut through the electric atmosphere as gym owner Richard Stone stepped forward nervously. "1 round, controlled contact. Stop on my command." His voice wavered, worried about liability but more terrified of losing his wealthy white membership base. The visual contrast was devastating and deliberate. 16-year-old Zara stood at 5'3" inches and 110 pounds, her dark skin gleaming under the harsh gym lights. Across from her, Marcus towered at 6'1" inch and 190 pounds of entitled white male aggression, his supporters cheering like Romans at the Colosseum. Every phone camera captured the racial and size dynamics that made this moment so intoxicating for his audience. The live stream counter climbed past 50,000 viewers as word spread across social media platforms. Before the official start, Marcus performed for his growing audience with theatrical cruelty. "This is for every hard-working white person tired of reverse racism." His supporters erupted in cheers that echoed off the marble walls. "Time to restore the natural order." He flexed for the cameras, his brown belt tied loosely around his waist like a badge of superiority. "Don't worry, everyone, I'll go easy on the diversity experiment. Can't have the liberal media saying we're too hard on the disadvantaged." Rewatch moment #1. The dance begins. The bell rang. Marcus charged forward with the reckless confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. His attacks came wild and aggressive, haymakers designed to overwhelm through size and strength rather than skill. But Zara moved like water. Every punch missed by millimeters, every kick found only empty air. She flowed around his attacks with supernatural grace, making the larger man look clumsy and slow. Her footwork was poetry in motion, 6 years of underground training revealing itself in perfect defensive sequences. The crowd's confident cheers began to waver. Whispers rippled through the white audience like cracks in their certainty. "She's actually trained, like really trained. Where did a black girl learn to move like that? Marcus can't even touch her. This isn't going how we expected." Marcus's racist supporters on the live stream chat shifted from confident mockery to nervous confusion. Their champion was being embarrassed by someone they considered subhuman. "Stand still and fight like a man!" Marcus roared, his face reddening with exertion and humiliation. "Oh, wait, you're not even a real American." But Zara remained silent, centered, focused. Each evasion was calculated. Each step is purposeful. She wasn't just avoiding his attacks, she was studying him, learning his patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to educate him about the difference between inherited privilege and earned skill. The lesson begins. After 2 minutes of making Marcus look foolish, Zara began her counterattack with surgical precision. Each strike was a response to a specific racist attack he'd leveled at her over the past month. A lightning-fast rib tap for calling her ghetto princess. A controlled shoulder strike for touching her hair without permission. A perfectly timed leg sweep that sent him stumbling for every know-your-place comment. Each technique was textbook perfect, controlled, and absolutely undeniable. The sound of her strikes echoed through the stunned silence like gunshots of justice. Elena watched from the doorway, 15 years of swallowed pride transforming into fierce maternal vindication. Her baby girl was reclaiming their family's dignity with every perfect technique. The white supremacist comments in the live stream chat began shifting from confident to panicked as their racial superiority narrative crumbled in real time. Marcus grew desperate, his entitled worldview shattering with each failed attack. "You think you're better than me?" he snarled, abandoning all pretense of technique. "You little Rewatch moment. #2. The silencing. Before Marcus could finish the slur, time seemed to slow. Zara stepped inside his guard with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed by angels of justice. Her right hand caught his wrist mid-swing, her left foot planted perfectly, her hip turned with 6 years of conditioning behind it. The ippon was flawless, a single, decisive throw that used Marcus's own momentum and rage against him. His body left the ground, suspended for a moment that felt like eternity, before crashing to the mat with a thunderous impact that shook the building's foundation. The silence was complete, total, absolute. A 16-year-old black girl stood over a grown white man who lay stunned on the ground, not injured but utterly, completely dominated by someone he'd considered genetically inferior. The historic words. Zara looked down at Marcus with calm dignity that belonged in history books. Her voice carried across the silent gym with the authority of every ancestor who'd fought for this moment. "Respect isn't about the color of your skin, Marcus. It's about the content of your character. And today, everyone can see which of us has any." The gym exploded. Phones captured every angle as the crowd erupted in chaos. The livestream viewer count shot past 300,000 as the clip spread across every social media platform simultaneously. Black Twitter went wild. Instagram stories multiplied like wildfire. TikTok users created reaction videos in real time. The comments flooded in faster than platforms could moderate them. Black girl magic. Justice served. David versus Goliath in real life. She ended racism with one throw. This is what happens when you underestimate black excellence. Rewatch moment #3. The bow. In the chaos of celebration and shock, someone captured the moment that would define a generation's fight against white supremacy. Zara stepped back from her fallen opponent and performed a perfect, respectful bow, the ultimate display of martial arts discipline and character. The image spread like lightning, a tiny black teenager showing more maturity and grace than the grown white man writhing on the ground beside her. Community victory erupted throughout the gym. Black members who'd been silent for years suddenly found their voices. Other minorities started cheering. Even some white allies applauded, recognizing they'd witnessed something historic. Young black girls watching the live stream saw themselves in Zara's triumph. White supremacists watching realized their mythology of racial superiority had just been shattered by a teenager in hand-me-down clothes. But as the celebration reached its peak, Marcus's face revealed something more dangerous than embarrassment. Cold, calculating white supremacist rage fueled by the kind of systemic power that had destroyed black lives for generations. The privilege he'd enjoyed his entire life had just been demolished by everything he'd been taught to consider inferior. And he possessed the resources to make her pay. Within 12 hours of the video going viral, the full machinery of white supremacist power activated like a military operation. Marcus's family didn't just have money, they had connections that reached into every corner of the legal system, media landscape, and political establishment. The assault charges hit Zara's family like a sledgehammer at 6 a.m. Police officers arrived at their modest apartment with arrest warrants, body cameras, and the kind of aggressive energy reserved for dangerous criminals. The narrative had been weaponized overnight. Violent black teenager attacks successful white businessman in racially motivated assault. Marcus's attorney, Jennifer Blackwood, was a 55-year-old legal assassin who specialized in destroying black lives through systematic character assassination. Her strategy was surgical in its racist precision: exploit every unconscious bias, trigger every white fear, and paint Zara as the embodiment of everything that terrified suburban America about black youth. The media blitz. By noon, Marcus was sitting across from sympathetic news anchors who'd already decided his innocence. The edited footage they showed removed every second of racist harassment, presenting only Zara's final technique stripped of all context. "I tried to mentor this troubled young woman," Marcus told Fox News, his voice perfectly calibrated for maximum sympathy. "When I offered guidance about respecting others and working hard, she attacked me with trained violence. This wasn't random. This was racial hatred taught by her community against successful white people." The conservative media ecosystem amplified his story with military efficiency. Talk radio hosts used Zara as proof of black supremacist violence. Social media bots flooded platforms with fabricated stories of black-on-white attacks. The hashtag #BlackPrivilege trended as white supremacist networks mobilized their digital army. Marcus's medical team provided documentation of severe injuries from unprovoked racial assault, carefully exaggerated bruises, and phantom psychological trauma that would play perfectly to white suburban juries who'd already decided black teenagers were inherently dangerous. Extra pressure. The retaliation was swift and comprehensive, designed to destroy the Johnson family completely. Elena received termination notices from all 3 of her cleaning contracts within 24 hours. Their landlord suddenly discovered noise complaints and safety concerns about their tenancy. Zara's school suspended her pending a violence assessment that could permanently destroy her academic future. The most devastating blow came from Marcus's family insurance company, which controlled policies for dozens of businesses employing black workers. The ultimatum was simple. Zara publicly apologizes for attacking a white man and admits she was raised to hate white people, or every black employee connected to their network faces immediate termination. Jennifer Blackwood's legal strategy exploited every racist stereotype embedded in American consciousness. Her witness statements came exclusively from Marcus's wealthy white friends, each describing their terror of the aggressive black girl who'd attacked without provocation. This defendant represents the dangerous intersection of racial resentment and martial arts training, Blackwood argued in pretrial motions. She was taught that white success is her enemy, and she used violence to express that hatred. This court must send a message that racially motivated attacks will not be tolerated. Public opinion warfare. Without context, white America saw exactly what their conditioning prepared them to see: a violent black girl attacking an innocent white man. The racist narrative spread like wildfire through communities already primed to believe the worst about black youth. Parent groups demanded protection from violent minorities. Conservative politicians used Zara's case to justify harsher juvenile justice policies. Police departments cited her video as evidence for increased surveillance of black communities. The comment sections became cesspools of racist validation. This is why we can't trust them around our children. Animals will always be animals, no matter how much money we waste on their education. Someone should teach that little monkey a permanent lesson. Death threats flooded their apartment mailbox. Elena found broken glass in their car tires. Racist graffiti appeared on their building overnight. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. Legal machinery. David Carter faced a legal mountain designed to crush civil rights advocates. The opposing counsel had unlimited resources, political connections, and a justice system structured to protect white privilege at all costs. "They're not just coming for you, Zara," he explained during a hushed conversation in his cramped office. "They're sending a message to every black person who dares to fight back. This case is about maintaining the racial hierarchy through legal terrorism." Blackwood's evidence package was masterfully constructed racism. *edited security footage showing only Zara's defensive response, *character witnesses describing Marcus as a pillar of the community, *expert testimony about black youth violence patterns, social media posts taken out of context to suggest anti-white hatred, financial documentation proving the Johnson family's resentment of white success. The hearing was scheduled for maximum white supremacist impact, live streamed across platforms where Marcus's supporters could celebrate the legal destruction of a black teenager who dared to embarrass white authority. Elena's breaking point. In their tiny apartment, surrounded by termination notices and death threats, Elena Johnson faced the impossible choice that had broken countless black mothers throughout American history. "Just apologize, mija," she whispered through tears that carried 15 years of accumulated pain. "Say you were wrong to fight back against a white man. Tell them you're sorry for defending yourself. We can't afford lawyers. We can't fight their system." She held termination letters from employers who'd suddenly discovered budget concerns and restructuring needs. The message was clear. Your daughter's dignity costs our entire family's survival. "Maybe they're right," Elena continued, her voice breaking. "Maybe people like us don't belong in their world. Maybe we should know our place." The ultimatum, Blackwood's final demand, arrived with the cold efficiency of a legal execution. Zara had 48 hours to appear at a public hearing and confess to being a violent, racist black youth who was taught to hate white people by her community. She would accept anger management counseling, community service cleaning white-owned businesses, and a formal apology to Marcus broadcast across all platforms. Refusal meant juvenile detention, her family's complete financial destruction, and Marcus's promise to make sure every black person in this city learns what happens when they forget their place. Marcus celebrated his anticipated victory with a social media campaign that drew thousands of white supremacist supporters to the hearing. They came dressed like a political rally, Confederate flags barely concealed, ready to witness the legal lynching of a black teenager who dared to fight back. But as Zara faced the choice between admitting guilt for defending herself or watching her family destroyed by white supremacist power, Sensei Yamamoto made a phone call that would change everything. "The gym has secrets deeper than racism, Zara-chan, and this old black man has been recording everything for 3 years." The community center packed beyond capacity as 1.2 million viewers joined the live stream that would determine whether justice existed for black children in America. The racial divide was visible and intentional. White supremacist supporters filled the front rows like a lynch mob, while black community members clustered in the back, many afraid to show their faces on camera. Marcus sat confidently at the plaintiff's table, surrounded by expensive white lawyers who'd never lost a case against black defendants. His supporters wore MAGA hats and thin blue-lined shirts, turning a legal hearing into a white nationalist rally. The live-stream chat exploded with racist celebration as they anticipated watching a black teenager destroyed by the system that protected their privilege. 16-year-old Zara sat with David Carter, her young Asian-American public defender, facing a legal machine designed to crush civil rights activists. The visual symbolism was devastating. 2 minorities against an army of white legal power backed by generational wealth and systemic racism. The racist prosecution. Jennifer Blackwood opened with surgical precision, her presentation crafted to trigger every white fear about black violence. The edited footage played on massive screens showing only Zara's defensive technique stripped of all racist context. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing the dangerous result of teaching minority children that they are victims of white oppression," Blackwood declared to nodding white heads throughout the courtroom. This defendant was raised in a culture of racial resentment that views white success as the enemy. Her expert witnesses painted Zara as the product of toxic black masculinity culture and anti-white indoctrination. Psychologists testified about oppositional defiant disorder common in fatherless black households. Sociologists discussed the violence inherent in rap music and urban culture. Each witness statement came from Marcus's wealthy white friends, describing their terror of the aggressive black girl who'd attacked without warning. They spoke of feeling unsafe in their own gym, of needing therapy to recover from witnessing black supremacist violence. Marcus's performance. When Marcus took the stand, he delivered the performance of his life. Every word was calculated to inflame white fears while positioning himself as the reasonable victim of black hatred. "Your Honor, I genuinely tried to help this troubled young woman understand the value of hard work and respect for authority. My family has employed countless minorities over the years. We believe in giving opportunities to the disadvantaged." His voice cracked with practiced emotion. When I offered gentle guidance about appropriate behavior and gratitude for the opportunities she'd been given, she exploded with racial hatred. The violence wasn't random. It was trained, calculated, designed to humiliate white people. The live stream chat erupted with white supremacist validation. Finally, someone telling the truth about these people. Black privilege needs to end. Teach that monkey her place. White genocide is real. Marcus continued his testimony with increasing confidence. This attack represents everything wrong with affirmative action and victim culture. We give these people opportunities, and they respond with violence against their benefactors. Someone needs to teach them consequences. Systemic racism unleashed, expert witnesses provided academic cover for white supremacist ideology. Criminologists testified about higher rates of violence in black communities. Educators discussed the failure of diversity programs to address underlying cultural problems. Psychologists explained how victimhood narratives create antisocial behavior in minority youth. The audience of white supporters nodded along, their prejudices validated by credentials and courtroom authority. The live stream audience grew to 1.5 million as white nationalist networks promoted the hearing as proof of racial superiority. Blackwood's closing argument was a masterpiece of legal racism disguised as concern for public safety. This defendant embodies the dangerous intersection of racial resentment and physical training. She was taught that white success equals black oppression, and she used violence to express that hatred. The reversal begins. David Carter stood with an evidence folder that would shatter every white supremacist fantasy in the room. "Your Honor, I'd like to present testimony about what really happened and what's been happening at this gym for 3 years." The courtroom stirred as Sensei Yamamoto entered. At 70 years old, the man they'd dismissed as an invisible janitor walked with the bearing of someone who'd spent decades fighting for justice. His military posture and quiet dignity commanded attention as he approached the witness stand. "My name is Master Sergeant Robert Yamamoto, United States Army Intelligence, retired. For the past 3 years, I have been documenting systematic civil rights violations at Riverside Athletic Club as part of a federal investigation." The white supremacist celebration died instantly. Marcus's confident smirk vanished as his world began collapsing in real time. The evidence unleashed. Yamamoto's testimony destroyed every lie with military precision. Hidden cameras had captured 3 years of systematic racist harassment, not just against Zara, but against every minority who dared enter the white sanctuary. The unedited footage played on screens throughout the courtroom, showing Marcus's weeks of racist torment in devastating detail. Every slur, every threat, every moment of humiliation was preserved in high definition. The defendant's response was not aggression. It was textbook self-defense against a racially motivated assault, Yamamoto testified. Marcus Wellington used his size, privilege, and social position to terrorize a child. When that child defended herself with minimal necessary force, he weaponized the legal system to continue his racist abuse. Additional evidence revealed the scope of Marcus's white supremacist network. Betting pools on how long before the diversity hires crack. Group chats planning to make the gym white again. Systematic theft of equipment blamed on black employees to justify their termination. Character Witness Parade. The parade of victims was devastating. Black employees fired for attitude problems after refusing racial harassment. Hispanic members are driven away with constant immigration status questions. Asian members were mocked with kung fu stereotypes. Jewish members facing anti-Semitic jokes. Each testimony chipped away at the white supremacist narrative until nothing remained but naked racism exposed to global scrutiny. Marcus's meltdown. Under the weight of undeniable evidence, Marcus's mask completely disintegrated. The privilege that had protected him for 35 years evaporated as his true character exploded across 1.5 million livestream viewers. "She's just a N*************, R!" he screamed, his face contorted with racial hatred. "They all are! I don't care how good she thinks she is! White people built this country and we deserve respect! These animals need to know their place!" The courtroom erupted in chaos. White supremacist supporters cheered while everyone else watched in horror. The live stream chat exploded with condemnation from around the world as Marcus's racist meltdown went viral in real time. Zara's historic response. In the chaos, Zara stood with calm dignity that belonged in civil rights museums. Her voice carried across the courtroom with the authority of every ancestor who'd fought for this moment. Thank you for finally showing everyone who you really are, Marcus. Racism dies in the light, and today the whole world is watching. The judge's gavel brought silence as justice finally arrived. All charges against the defendant are dismissed immediately. Countersuits will be filed for hate crimes, harassment, and conspiracy to deny civil rights. As Marcus's world crumbled and his racism was exposed to the world, Zara faced her final choice: accept personal victory or transform it into a movement that would protect every black child from ever enduring what she'd survived. The gavel's final strike echoed through the packed courtroom like a gunshot of justice, but the real explosion happened across social media as 1.5 million viewers witnessed Marcus Wellington's complete destruction in real time. Within minutes, his racist meltdown became the most shared video in civil rights history. Federal agents arrived at the courthouse before Marcus could leave, serving warrants for hate crime charges and civil rights violations. His firm's partners watched the live stream from their boardroom and terminated him via text message while he sat in handcuffs. Every sponsor, client, and business associate abandoned him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Marcus's social media accounts vanished as platforms scrambled to distance themselves from his toxic brand. White supremacist forums that had celebrated him hours earlier now called him a liability who'd exposed their movement to unwanted scrutiny. The man who'd built his identity on racial superiority found himself utterly alone, destroyed by the very hatred he'd weaponized against others. Elena's vindication. The transformation at Riverside Athletic Club was swift and absolute. Richard Stone, shaken to his core by the revelation of systematic racism in his facility, personally apologized to Elena Johnson on national television. Mrs. Johnson, your family has shown more character and dignity than our entire organization, he declared to a packed press conference. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Executive Manager of Facility Operations with full executive salary, benefits, and equity participation. Elena's salary increased by 400% overnight. The woman who'd spent 15 years invisible in white spaces suddenly found herself managing the very people who'd treated her as subhuman. Her first executive decision was implementing the Johnson Protocol, comprehensive anti-racism policies with zero tolerance for discrimination. Global movement #Zara's Rule exploded across every social media platform, becoming the largest civil rights hashtag in history. Young black girls worldwide shared videos of themselves practicing martial arts, their confidence transformed by seeing someone who looked like them refuse to accept white supremacist abuse. The movement transcended borders as teenagers in London, Lagos, and Los Angeles found courage in Zara's example. Professional athletes posted tribute videos. Celebrities shared their own stories of overcoming racism. World leaders condemned racial harassment while praising Zara's dignified response to systematic oppression. Universities across the nation created Zara scholarships for minority students pursuing martial arts and social justice. The video became required viewing in civil rights curricula, teaching new generations that power structures could be challenged and defeated. Institutional change corporate America scrambled to avoid association with Marcus's brand of exposed racism. Companies implemented Riverside protocols to prevent racial harassment in their facilities. Insurance providers required anti-discrimination training for policy coverage. Athletic organizations adopted zero-tolerance policies for racist behavior. Congress fast-tracked the Civil Rights in Recreation Act, federal legislation protecting minorities from harassment in athletic facilities nationwide. The bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support as politicians feared association with Marcus's toxic brand. Sensei Yamamoto's evidence exposed a network of racist harassment spanning dozens of facilities. Federal investigations launched across the country as other hidden cameras revealed similar patterns of systematic discrimination. The old boys' network that had protected white privilege for generations suddenly found themselves under federal scrutiny. Educational revolution. Lincoln High School, embarrassed by their treatment of Zara, created the Johnson Center for Social Justice, a program teaching students to recognize and combat racism while building confidence through martial arts training. Schools nationwide implemented Zara curricula, helping young people understand the difference between justified self-defense and unprovoked violence. The distinction was crucial. Zara had never initiated conflict, only defended herself when attacked. The Yamamoto Academy for Justice received donations from around the world, expanding to serve 10,000 students annually across 50 cities. Each location taught martial arts alongside civil rights education, creating a generation of young people equipped to defend themselves physically and legally. Personal transformation. Zara's college applications, once rejected due to the false assault charges, became bidding wars among universities desperate to associate with her brand of principled courage. She chose Howard University's pre-law program, planning to combine legal advocacy with martial arts instruction. Elena and Zara moved from their cramped apartment to a beautiful home in an integrated neighborhood where their success was celebrated rather than resented. The generational poverty that had defined their family for decades ended in a single moment of courage. Marcus's reckoning brief footage showed Marcus in an orange jumpsuit, attending court-mandated sensitivity training while serving time for federal hate crimes. His journey suggested that confronting the consequences of racism might eventually lead to authentic change, though redemption would require acknowledging decades of privilege and harm. The final image captured Zara teaching a diverse group of young black girls, each standing tall with the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing they belong in any space they choose to occupy. 2 years later, 18-year-old Zara Johnson stepped onto the stage at the NAACP National Convention as the youngest keynote speaker in the organization's history. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes as 15,000 delegates honored the teenager who'd transformed personal trauma into global change. The Yamamoto Academy for Justice network now spanned 80 cities across 6 continents, serving 25,000 students annually. Each location combined martial arts training with civil rights education, creating safe spaces where minority children learned to defend themselves physically and intellectually against systematic oppression. Local news stations regularly featured success stories from the academies. Young people who'd found confidence to speak up against bullying, students whose academic performance soared after learning self-discipline, and teenagers who'd chosen leadership over victimhood when faced with discrimination. Global impact statistics. The numbers told a story of worldwide transformation that began with one 16-year-old's refusal to accept racist abuse. Hate crime prosecutions increased 300% as victims gained courage to report incidents previously dismissed by authorities. Police departments, terrified of association with Marcus's exposed racism, began taking minority complaints seriously for the first time in decades. Youth self-defense enrollment among minorities exploded 800% worldwide as parents recognized that martial arts training provided both physical protection and mental resilience against discrimination. Zara's rule generated over 1 billion social media interactions across 47 languages, inspiring similar movements in countries where racial minorities faced systematic oppression. UNESCO adopted the Johnson Protocol as international standard for combating racism in recreational facilities, with 193 member nations implementing anti-discrimination policies based on Zara's case. Marcus's Evolution Brief documentary footage showed Marcus Wellington in a community center, genuinely volunteering with at-risk youth of all backgrounds. 3 years of federal prison, mandatory counseling, and complete social isolation had forced him to confront the racist conditioning that had defined his entire existence. His transformation wasn't Hollywood redemption. It was slow, painful recognition that white supremacist ideology had made him a monster. He worked without pay, without recognition, and without forgiveness from communities he'd harmed. True accountability meant accepting that some damage couldn't be undone. His former supporters had long since moved on to new targets, leaving him to rebuild his humanity one honest conversation at a time. Elena's legacy. Elena Johnson had become America's most sought-after diversity consultant, helping Fortune 500 companies address systematic racism while building generational wealth for her family. Her story, from invisible cleaning lady to executive boardroom, inspired working mothers worldwide who'd been told their dreams were impossible. She spoke at corporate retreats with the authority of someone who'd survived decades of racial microaggressions and emerged victorious. Her consulting firm employed dozens of formerly overlooked minority workers, proving that talent existed everywhere when given genuine opportunity. Educational revolution continues. Universities worldwide offered Zara Studies courses examining the intersection of martial arts, civil rights, and youth empowerment. High schools reported dramatic decreases in racial bullying as students learned to recognize and reject discriminatory behavior. The Stand Like Zara curriculum taught young people that dignity was non-negotiable regardless of age, race, or economic status. Students practiced both physical self-defense and verbal techniques for confronting racism without escalating to violence. Call to action. Zara's story proves that one moment of principled courage can shatter centuries of systematic oppression. Every minority child deserves to walk into any space with unshakable confidence. Every racist deserves to learn that privilege has limits when confronted by prepared resistance. Share this story if you believe excellence deserves respect regardless of skin color. Tag a young person who inspires you to stand up for justice. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people creating extraordinary change through disciplined courage. Comment below, have you witnessed racism that demanded intervention? Have you seen someone transform discrimination into empowerment? Your story might inspire the next generation of leaders who refuse to accept injustice. Remember, silence enables oppression. Standing up for dignity isn't about seeking conflict. It's about refusing to let hatred win through intimidation. To every minority child watching, your heritage is strength. Your voice matters. Your excellence threatens those who benefit from your silence. And that's exactly why you must never be silent again. To our allies, true equality means everyone receives respect based on character, not color. This story isn't about division. It's about the unity that comes when justice finally arrives. Sometimes revolution begins with a single perfect technique that says, I belong here, I will not be moved, and I will not let you diminish my humanity.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.